One of the biggest changes in patch 3.25 was the addition of 60 new base types split across the helmet, body armor, boots, and glove slots. These new base types were introduced for the most part to change the balance of where exactly a character is gaining the majority of their basic defensive stats from. Previously, this was largely coming from auras such as Determination in many builds, especially those archetypes which lacked investment elsewhere into scaling those defensive stats. Those particular builds were fairly reliant on using the aura combined with a moderate amount of aura effect scaling to obtain a reasonable amount of defense, and this meant that they could then make use of important uniques in a lot of cases. A great example of this in previous patches is the Lightning Coil. However, the addition of these new base types and subsequent nerfs to defensive auras as a result has massively nerfed the usage of those uniques, because those items weren't compensated in any way as a result of the aura nerfs. In a previous video, before we received the patch notes for 3.25, I speculated that GGG could move some of the unique items onto new base types, without changing their stats to effectively buff those items with updated base defense stats. After all, they've done this before with other unique items, but they didn't choose to do this, at least not in patch 3.25. It's possible that they wanted to see exactly how these changes would shake out in the end to get a better understanding of exactly what would be strong in the Settlers League, but the sheer drop-off in the usage of uniques in 3.25, especially unique body armors, is staggering. When comparing 3.24 Necropolis to 3.25 Settlers in the softcore trade leagues, the usage of rare body armors has almost doubled, from 27% of all characters in 3.24 to 48% of all characters in 3.25. Now, this of course isn't 100% down to the new base types and aura nerfs, because another important factor is exactly what's popular, what builds are being played. For example, Deadeye was the most popular ascendancy in Necropolis, and of all of those Deadeye builds, over 80% of them were using unique body armors. Meanwhile, for the most popular ascendancy in Settlers, the Slayer, only 26% of those builds are using unique body armors. But if we're to just isolate the Deadeye for a moment, a class which has similar builds being played between the two leagues, we can see that from 3.24 to 3.25, the usage of unique body armors has dropped off significantly. That's 26% less unique body armors being used in those builds. Now, the core reason for these shifts is of course that the power level of rare body armors relative to those unique options has increased. Making use of a unique body armor in 3.25 now means that you're giving up a significant amount of defensive stat, where previously you would make up those shortcomings from the use of a defensive aura. Whilst this trend can be seen almost entirely across the board for unique body armors, with a few exceptions, which we'll discuss in just a moment, I want to first take a look at two specific unique body armors. Two body armors which have largely impacted the meta for their build archetypes for quite some time prior to this patch. The Lightning Coil and the Fourth Vow. Lightning Coil's usage dropped from 8% of characters in Necropolis to just 2% in Settlers. 75% less characters are using Lightning Coil league on league. Now, one of the big factors here is that there's half as many Pathfinder characters in 3.25 as there were in 3.24. But the reason for this isn't those new base type introductions, it's because of another change to damage taken as, which saw a significant nerf to Taste of Hate amongst other sources of these stats, preventing a character from reaching 100% physical damage taken as elemental, a previously very popular way to deal with physical damage in older leagues. Add to that the nerf to Monster Overwhelm, which has made traditional defenses against physical damage such as armor and endurance charges much more reliable, and it feels like the use of Lightning Coil has become less mandatory for many builds. Damage taken as is still incredibly useful and still very popular, as we'll see with another unique body armor in just a moment, but overall a shift away from full damage taken as defensive setups towards ones which mix aspects of multiple layers has seen a decrease in the usage of Lightning Coil overall. Then we have the Fourth Vow. Now this is an interesting one. The Fourth Vow has been a go-to for defensive setups that completely trivialize incoming elemental hits through its usage in combination with Divine Flesh, along with stacking a decent amount of armor. But from 3.24 to 3.25, the usage of Fourth Vow has dropped from 6% of characters to just 0.7%. Now, there's a few really important factors going on here that may not be immediately recognizable just from the usage rate and the builds that it's being used on. You can see that the percentage of necromancers using the item as a share of overall class usage has increased, but the actual amount of necromancers using it has massively decreased due to the nerf to Detonate Dead. Meanwhile, the nerfs to the champion ascendancy didn't help the Fourth Vow cause much either. But those two factors only contribute to the amount of builds being played that could use the Fourth Vow. There were three other very big changes that massively impacted this item. The first and possibly biggest change was the removal of the Divine Blessing support gem, which had incredible synergy with the Fourth Vow because of its combination with Divine Flesh, a keystone which makes Energy Shield almost useless as all damage bypasses it. These builds would then use Eldritch Battery to solve mana costs and give purpose to their Energy Shield, allowing for the use of an extra aura with Divine Blessing. But Divine Blessing is now gone, and with it, those builds lost a lot of power from that extra aura. The second big change is of course the Determination nerf. 99% of Fourth Vow builds in 3.24 were using Determination, compared to the 91% in 3.25. Whilst the drop-off in percentage isn't that large, the actual amount of builds using the Fourth Vow is a lot lower, and this nerf to Determination is one of the major factors, because these builds now need to invest significantly more to reach the same level of armor that they previously would be reaching. The third big change is the Juggernaut's Unbreakable Ascendancy Notable, which used to make 8% of armor apply to incoming elemental hits, and now makes 15% of armor apply to incoming chaos hits. The Juggernaut's old Unbreakable Notable with the Mini Transcendence had incredible synergy with the Fourth Vow and Divine Flesh, allowing the character to split incoming elemental damage into multiple types to apply armor calculations separately to mitigate that damage. But the new Juggernaut is much more reliant on endurance charges to mitigate elemental damage. While you can argue that the new Unbreakable provides an option to run a well-crafted rare body armor alongside Divine Flesh to achieve a similar outcome instead of using the Fourth Vow, whilst gaining a huge benefit against physical damage because you can get a lot more base armor and you can get the additional PDR suffix as well, not to mention the powerful Eldritch Implicits. And as a result of that change, the usage of Fourth Vow on Juggernaut builds has sharply decreased by more than 50%. Now, whilst unique body armor usage is down overall, not every unique body armor has fallen off. In fact, some have remained as popular as they were in the previous league, and a few have gone up in popularity. Cloak of Flame has remained at 8% usage league on league, largely thanks to the Chieftain's increase in play rate, with that increase in characters using Cloak replacing the loss of Pathfinders using it from the previous league. Surprising is the Iron Fortress, a strength stacking body armor which is a lot more popular in 3.25 despite the nerf to Battle Mage's Cry. And there's also Cloak of Defiance, one of the biggest winners, which has seen its usage increase by almost 400% from 3.24 to 3.25, particularly interesting considering the amount of hierophants between the two leagues is almost exactly the same. Overall then, the usage of unique body armors is down, with many of the popular items of the past few years falling off. It will be interesting to see if GGG will make any changes to those items in future leagues, whether that's buffs to their unique stats or simply moving them to stronger base types, or perhaps they're happy with them being considerably more niche. Only time will tell. Thanks for watching this video, and thank you for your ongoing support. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.